Now let us try and understand what exactly is happening. So whatever the values of weights were before, these are the updated weights according to the cost function that was incurred. So this is the updated value of W1, W2 up to Wn. So basically we are again multiplying the x1 by W1, x2 by W2, xm by Wn and so on. And afterwards we are adding them up, we are giving it as the input to the activation function, and whatever the predicted value is going to be, that is going to be more closer and more accurate to the actual value of y. So basically after the weights are updated, the difference between y and y hat is going to reduce significantly. So by that what do we mean is the cost function, that is the difference between y and y hat, is reducing and reducing. That means that the cost function is reducing. So basically we are going to repeat this process on and on. So basically again the cost function will be less, we'll again provide that cost function or feed in the cost function as the input, and again the weight is going to be manipulated in such a way that the cost function is going to reduce. So basically this is known as back propagation, and this flow, the forward flow, is known as forward propagation. I found out some nice animations that will help you to understand the process more clearly. So I'll just reload this page. Now see, this is an artificial neuron. X0, X1 and X2 are the inputs, and W0, W1, W2 are the weights or the bias. We are going to multiply these two and these two and these two, and we're going to sum this up. So multiplication means we're actually taking the dot product of the input value and the weights. And according to this dot product, we're going to basically sum them up. So the summation is going to be the input of the activation function. So this is their sum. We're going to provide this as the input of the activation function, and accordingly we are going to get the output, that is the predicted value. Now let us see the forward propagation of a particular neural network. So for this neural network, according to the input, the value will go to the hidden layer according to the weights that are assigned, and accordingly we'll get a predicted value of y. So this is the y hat value. And now let us see how does the back propagation occur. So this is the feed forward neural network that we talked about. Now for back propagation, so see, we are going to pass in the input values based on the weights that will go into the hidden layer, and we'll get some kind of y hat. Then we'll calculate the cost function or the loss function, and that will be back propagated, and then again the weights will be manipulated, and based on those manipulated weights again we'll go forward, that is the feed forward neural network again, and according to that again the weights will be manipulated because the cost function is going to be reducing and reducing. So the target is that we are going to reduce the cost function so that we'll get more accurate results continuously. So basically forward propagation and backward propagation is going to occur continuously. Now to reduce that cost function, remember I told you all that we are going to use a concept known as gradient descent. So let's talk more about this gradient descent. About this cost function, it is nothing but a quadratic equation in y. So it means that its graph is going to be a parabola. So of course it is going to have a minimum value. For example, this is the graph of a particular neural network for a particular cost function. On y-axis we have the cost function, on x-axis we have the predicted value, that is y hat. So if you see, our target is that we want to achieve the minimum value of cost function. So according to this equation, according to this graph, we are going to get minimum value of cost function over here and at this particular y hat. And it is the optimum case when we get the cost function as 0. Now to get the best possible value of cost function at this particular point, suppose you have particular inputs. So to get the best value, you can do one thing, you can use the brute force method. So basically you'll be changing the values of each and every weight and you'll be checking to get the minimum value of cost function. But if you see, it is a quite tedious task, right? Because for example, in this particular case, so suppose you have 3 into 4, so 12 plus these 4, so 16 total weights. So if you have 16 weights, you'll have to calculate it so many times because there can be so many 10 to the power something number of combinations that you'll have to calculate, and it might take lifetime. And this is just for this particular case. If there are more hidden layers, there will be more number of weights. So that's why it is kind of going to take infinite number of time to solve that particular problem, and you end up into the curse of dimensionality. You can read about more about it afterwards. But to solve this problem, what you can do is you can use the gradient descent method. So gradient, right, it means slope, or you can, by slope what do we mean is we are going to basically differentiate. So for example, you have a ball which is over here and you calculate the slope. So if you see the slope at this particular point is going to be negative, right? So if you calculate, so if you draw a tangent and you take its angle with the x-axis, it is going to be obtuse, that is negative. So if the value of slope is negative, so basically from here up to this particular global minimum, you're going to get the slope as negative at any point on this curve. So whenever you get a negative slope, it means that you should move towards the right side, that is downhill. So you'll move downhill on the right side. And if you move to this point in the next step, what you'll do again, you'll calculate the tangent. So if you see the tangent, it is going to be positive. So from here, from this point up to this point, so on this right side of the curve, you'll see that the slope is always going to be positive. So for positive slope, you should move towards the left side downhill. So again, you will move downhill towards the left side. So basically, if the derivative is negative, that is, if the slope is negative, move towards the right side. If the slope is positive, move towards the left side. So basically, you are going to end up into the global optimum point. So this is how the gradient descent will look, but this is just for one dimensional space. If we have a two dimensional space, this will look kind of like this, wherein it is going on to the minimum value of the cost function, and it is known as gradient descent. Descent means it is going towards the, or it is descending towards the minimum value of cost function. Then afterwards we have gradient descent for 3D. So for 3D space, you can see that actually if you look at it from the top, it will look as if it is zigzagging itself towards the minimum value. Now for this particular cost function, it is a quadratic equation, so of course we're getting a convex curve. But if we change the cost function, or if we have a multi-dimensional space, then we can get a different kind of curve. So for example, this is the curve that we have right now. For this case, now our aim is that we want minimum value of cost function. To do that, in this curve, you can see there can be multiple local minimums. So this is a minima, this is a minima, this is a minima, but we want the optimum function, right? So it should be right here, over here. So it should be a global minimum. But if we apply our normal gradient descent function, what will happen? It will find a local minima and it will be satisfied by it. But that's not the case. We want the global minima. What can be done to solve this problem? For that, we're going to use a stochastic gradient descent. So for stochastic gradient descent, we don't need a convex function like we did for normal gradient descent. So the word stochastic, right? And there is one more, the batch gradient descent, which is a normal gradient descent that we talked about before. The normal batch gradient descent uses a deterministic approach. So what is deterministic? Deterministic means all the events, right? So if it is using all the events, means it is passing the data batch wise. So basically it is combining some rows and it is basically creating a batch, and then we are passing it into our neural network. And for stochastic gradient descent, what we are doing is we are iteratively passing every row one by one. So basically this is row wise, and batch gradient descent is batch wise. So there is this difference between stochastic and batch gradient descent. So let us see, there is a good article on Geeks for Geeks that talks about batch gradient descent and stochastic gradient descent. And one might think that stochastic gradient descent is more slow because we are passing in the data row wise, and over here we are passing the data batch wise, but that's not the case actually, because for batch gradient descent, what is happening is it takes a lot of time to store the memory or to load the rows in a batch. But whereas in stochastic gradient descent, what is happening is we are passing every time each and every row iteratively. So that's why this process is more fast. And of course, you can see that it computes gradient descent using a single training sample, and over here we are passing a batch of samples. And one more thing, over here we can avoid the local minimas, and over here we cannot avoid the local minimas. So basically, this will be more helpful for finding out the global minimas. Based on the stochastic gradient descent, we'll be calculating the minima and we'll be back propagating the errors accordingly, and we'll be adjusting the weights. So let us talk more about back propagation. You'll see that when we do back propagation, you can adjust all the weights at the same time. So why is this important? This is important so that you know which part of the error each of your weights in your neural network is responsible for. And actually this was the reason why neural networks started rapidly developing around 1980s. So just to sum it up, you should know that it adjusts all the weights at the same time. Now after all that is done, let us see what is happening in the training of the neural network from start to the end, that is from forward propagation to the back propagation. Let us see some steps that will be deciding how to train the neural network using stochastic gradient descent. So for the first step, what you're going to do is you will randomly initialize the weights to the small numbers that are close to 0. The weights cannot exactly be 0. And in the next step, what you'll do, you'll input the first observation of the data set in the input layer and each feature in one input node. So basically each row one by one. After that, you will start the forward propagation process, that is from left to the right. The neurons will be activated in such a way that the impact of each neuron's activation is limited by weight. So basically the weights will decide the activation of the neuron, and will propagate the activations until we get the predicted result y hat. Afterwards, you'll compare y hat, that is the predicted value of y, to the actual value of y, and you'll get some kind of error and you'll measure the generated error. So what you'll do, you'll pass in this measured error back into the neural network. This is known as back propagation from right side to the left side. So the error is back propagated and the weights will be updated according to how much they're responsible for the error. And accordingly, whenever we'll again forward propagate it, the activation function will choose whatever to do. The learning rate. So this is one of the parameters in the function that we'll talk about when we do the practical part. So the learning rate will decide how much we update the weights, by how much factor do we update the weights. And then again, the step 6 will repeat the steps 1 to 5 and update the weights for each observation. So basically this is known as reinforcement learning. That is forward propagation and the backward propagation combined for every weight. So row wise. Afterwards, or else there is one more step or one more method, which is batch learning. So basically you'll repeat the steps 1 to 5, but you'll only update the weights after a batch of observations. So this is the difference actually. So for reinforcement learning, we use row wise observations, and for batch learning, of course, we'll pass the batch and then we'll update the weights afterwards. And the step 7 is that when the whole training set is passed to the neural network, this will consist of one epoch. This epoch is a really important term. And after one whole epoch is complete, that is after one whole training set has been passed to the neural network, we'll redo more such epochs. And this epoch is also a deciding factor for for accuracy. So basically it can depend. So if there are suppose 50 epochs, then if you get an accurate neural network, suppose you get an accuracy of 80%, then it will be good. But suppose you try and increase the epochs to say 80 epochs and you increase the accuracy, then it will be more good. So it will depend on the neural network and the data set. And now comes the most interesting part, because now we're going to implement whatever we have learned, all of these steps over a practical real data set. So let us jump to the data set.